I want to tell you a little bit about my research and about what I do across the street. I'm in communicative sciences and disorders. Our building is across the street from the main ComArtSci building. We're in the Oyer building, and our field focuses on what can go wrong in communication when people have a difficulty. My specific difficulty that I focus on in my research is stuttering. Now, stuttering is a communication issue in which people have difficulty producing speech smoothly. They know what they want to say, but they have difficulty actually saying it. Stuttering has been studied since Egyptian times. We actually have Egyptian hieroglyphs referring to stuttering. And we know that there have been many, many investigations over truly millennia trying to understand this condition. It's a challenging condition to study, but it's also an extremely rewarding condition to study because it sits at the intersection of many different aspects of communication. When we look at our models of the development of stuttering, we know that there is certainly a speech motor aspect because people have trouble moving their mouth to produce speech. There is a linguistic aspect because it involves the formulation of what people are seeking to say. There's a social aspect because it affects interactions with other people when you have difficulty talking. There's a psychological aspect because imagine the impact that it has on people who are unable to socialize normally, who are unable to produce speech in the way they want at the time they want. It has a neurological aspect because all of these interactions take place in the brain. It has a genetic aspect because we know stuttering runs in families and there's a genetic link. And I could go on talking about how stuttering sits at the intersection of all of these different areas of study. That's true in the theoretical world. It's true in the practical world. Those of us across the street who work with people who stutter are practicing speech language pathologists. We're clinicians, we work clinically, and our master's program is designed to train students in order to become practicing clinicians. So there is an assessment angle of trying to understand what stuttering is for an individual speaker and that speaker's family. And there's a treatment aspect seeking to reduce the burden of that communication difficulty for that individual and for the family. So, stuttering sits at the intersection of just about everything that I can think of scientifically and clinically, and that makes it an extremely interesting area of study. Now, as I say that, I don't want you to think that I'm making light of the difficulties that people have. Our work is focused on diminishing those difficulties. Some of you may have seen stuttering in the news just these past few days. There was a young man who stutters who spoke at the Democratic National Convention last year, offering an endorsement and a story about his relationship with Joe Biden, the candidate for president of the United States, also a person who stutters. And what you saw in that video, if you happen to watch it, is a young man who knew exactly what he wanted to say, but in the moment had difficulty saying it. It was a tremendous example of the bravery that it takes, the courage that it takes for people who stutter to be able to communicate. Because here is this young man being broadcast to, I think the numbers were like 100 million people, okay, and allowing his difference to show. It was really quite a victory for those of us in the field to see this kind of active portrayal, open portrayal of stuttering. My social media has been a buzz since that occurred on Thursday night. I've met Joe Biden in my role as a person working with those who stutter and talked to him about his stuttering. And the more we can be open about that, the more we can reduce the serious and significant societal stigma surrounding stuttering. I want to tell you now that I've given you that introduction, just a little bit about what we do in my lab across the street. My focus is on understanding the experience of stuttering. Whoops, sorry. What it's like for people who stutter to live with this particular condition. We focus on evaluating the development of stuttering. We focus on understanding treatment outcomes. And of course, we're a training program, so we focus on helping to educate clinicians about how they can help people who stutter. I've got many projects going on in the lab. We look at the experience of those who stutter in a little bit of a unique way. Most of the research in our field has been done from the perspective of the listener, what people hear when talking to a person who stutters. Our work is focused on the perspective of the individual who stutters themselves, understanding what they are going through as they navigate a world, communicating differently from other people. We look at this then from an experiential standpoint. We look at understanding the development of stuttering and what are the factors, neurological, linguistic, and psychological are the ones that we focus on the most, understanding what differentiates stuttered speech from fluent speech. A good bit of my work over the years has been focused on improving treatment outcomes. As part of doing that, I developed a tool called the Oasis that is used worldwide for understanding the impact of stuttering on people's quality of life. We then use that to assess treatment efficacy in preschoolers, school age children, adolescents, and adults. Those are things that I've been doing for a while. Right now, I'm in the midst of starting up two major new studies. One will be involved in a clinical trial, exploring the potential efficacy of a new pharmaceutical intervention, a pharmaceutical intervention, a medication that may help people who stutter. We're one of 8 sites around the country involved in this clinical trial. And I have also, just as of August 1, started up a new NIH-funded study in RO1 looking at the differences in how stuttering is experienced in a clinical setting or a laboratory setting as opposed to in a real world setting. Stuttering varies across situations. It's one of the most frustrating aspects of stuttering for people who live with this condition. They may be able to say a word perfectly easily in one situation, yet in another situation be barely able to get that word out. And that variability affects every aspect of their life. Imagine the thing that you want most in your life and then having it. Yeah. Let's say you always wish that you were taller or that you were wealthier or that you were thinner or whatever, and boom, you were, and then boom, you weren't. That's how variability is experienced for people who stutter. They have fluent speech sometimes, and then out of nowhere, boom, they have stuttered speech. And we're trying to understand why that occurs because it affects our assessment. People may be perfectly fluent when they come in for their evaluation. Have you ever had something intermittent wrong with your car? And then as soon as you get to the dealer, it stops making that crazy noise. And as soon as you leave the car dealer, it starts making that crazy noise again. Well, stuttering is like that for people who stutter. We're trying to understand that. And then in addition, I write books. I have a little publishing company designed to help speech language pathologists like myself help people who stutter. So we focus on real world materials as well. Our focus today is on opportunities for students to get involved. This is just a taste of some of the student projects that we've had going on. Karen Herring is a doctoral candidate, and she has been involved in helping children who stutter who participate in summer camp programs. And so she's examining the efficacy of that. And
We
also,
have about 1 more minute.
1 more minute is perfect. That's all I need.
Great.
Also, in helping to reduce the fears that people have about stuttering. I've currently got 2 master students doing thesis projects with me, one looking at societal stigma and how societal stigma relates to individual stigma, self-stigma that people who stutter experience, and another looking at how students are treated in the school system in the United States to see if we can support clinicians in making better decisions on helping students in the schools. Finally, we have a brand new PhD graduate. He's now a postdoc across the street also with Dr. Bridget Walsh, and he looks at the role of attention and memory and factors that affect the production of disfluencies. There's a lot of stuff going on over in our lab. If you're interested in learning more, please do reach out to me. I'd be delighted to help you and share some of these ideas with you. Again, welcome and thank you for the opportunity to address the group this morning.